Welcome to season 3 of Break the Silence, Build the Future. I'm your host, Fortuma Kuso. This season 3 of the podcast, is all about what comes after. After the loss, after the trauma, after the pain, after the moment that changed everything. Today's episode is titled Now What? When the Dust Settles. That's exactly where many of us, including myself, find ourselves. When the phone stops ringing, when the meals stop coming, when everyone has returned to their lives, and yours will never be the same. In this first episode of the season, we're going to sit in that stillness together. I want to talk about the shock of survival, the weight of silence, and the first uncertain steps forward. There is a strange kind of silence that follows life-altering events. At least that's what I had experienced. The chaos that came when my daughter turned up missing, the 12 days it took us to find her, the funeral, the family visits, all that chaos of me trying to take care of things eventually faded. And I was left with stillness that no one prepared me for. When I lost my daughter, everything around me was loud. Grief, people, planning, responsibility. I was surrounded by movements of doing this and that, and organizing this and organizing this, and calling this person, calling that person, and arranging and organizing calls to make, details to manage, people to comfort, people trying to comfort me. I remember waking up each day and operating in this strange haze, cloud covered the vision, where I was seeing and wasn't seeing, where I was looking and wasn't looking, where I was feeling and wasn't feeling, where I was experiencing and wasn't experiencing. Part numbness, part disbelief, but I kept going. Because that's what people do in crisis. You just keep moving. If you had asked me before I lost my daughter, what would the days following of that loss would be like, I would not have thought about movement to be the signs of that day. I would not have thought about organizing and arranging and planning to be part of that day. I would have imagined it to be where I'm in bed under the covers and able to move. But as I realized, you just keep moving because you have to. What else are you going to do? But then came the silence. The day after the service, the moment the last guest left, the kitchen quiet, the air in the house heavy. And it was in that silence that the real grief settled in. Not the kind you can explain in words. Not the kind you can tell people what it feels like. Not the kind you can comprehend yourself and gain some understanding in it. But the kind that presses against your chest and fills your body with questions. I would sit in the room and feel like I was trespassing in someone else's life. I would run my fingers along the edges of her dresses, still expecting her to emerge from it. The truth is, I didn't know how to exist in a world she no longer lived in. And in that silence, in that quietness, In that weight of her absence, I asked myself, now what? But I had no answer. Just a life I didn't recognize anymore. A version of myself I didn't know how to be. That's what I was faced with. That's what I was looking at. And that's what nobody tells you. Survival is not a finish line. It's the beginning of something even harder. Learning how to live again. Learning how to breathe again. Learning how to exist again. Learning how to look at the world and try and make sense of it. That is what survival is. We often think, at least I did, healing means returning to who we were, going through something on our way back to who we were, going through the loss, going through the pain, going through the tragedy, on your way back to who you were before. But the truth is, you can't go back. And now I am thinking, maybe you shouldn't try. I am not trying. The person I was before my loss was strong in one way, taking care of my family, going to work, doing what I needed to do, taking my daughter in every time she left that relationship, getting mad at her one day and feeling sorry for her next. But the person I am becoming now is learning a different kind of strength. I am learning how to carry my daughter's absence, how to create something meaningful, some kind of purpose, some kind of positive outcome out of this devastation that I was dealt with. One thing I've learned for the last 2 years, it's coming up 2 years. This May 26th would be 2 years the day she turned up missing. One thing I have learned in those 2 years is your first step doesn't have to be a leap. It probably will not be a leap. It can be something as simple as getting out of bed, washing your face, saying no, saying yes. Small is sacred when you are surviving. You don't need to know where you're going to take a step forward, because you will not know where you're going. Because all of a sudden, the world makes no sense. The steps make no sense. The movement makes no sense. Nothing makes sense. Don't worry if you do not know where you're going to take a step forward. You just need to know this is your world now. These are your steps now. This is your existence now. That's all you need to know. At the beginning, I felt like people expected me to be strong. Now that the funeral is over, now that she's gone, now that we know what happened, we don't know what happened. But I felt weaker than ever in the midst of that silence. And I asked myself, is something the matter with me? And came to the realization that absolutely not. In fact, I accepted what I am feeling right now is real, raw, and honest. The world tends to rush people through grief because it doesn't know how to hold it together. People do not know how to manage grief. They do not know how to understand it because it's painful and very uncomfortable. Even people who love you the most do not know what to say. But your grief is not on a timeline. Mine isn't. Some days I feel better than others, but you're allowed to break down long after everyone else has moved on, long after everyone else is doing what they're supposed to, long after everyone else returned to their life. Just remember, you loved so deeply, and the loss you're experiencing so deeply is reflection of that loss. If you are listening to this And you are in that moment, that quiet, painful, still moment. I want you to know you are not alone. You don't need to have it all figured out. Not today, not tomorrow, not next year, not next decade. Just breathe. Be there with the silence. Be there with the whooshing sound that fills you all over when you are alone with the grief, with the loss, with the absence of your loved one. And when you are ready, take one step. Whatever that looks like for you, take a step. Do not measure your step against other people's steps. You can take one step forward and two back tomorrow, but take one step, whether it's forward or backward, whatever that looks like for you. Thank you for joining me today. Next week, we will talk about why mourning the life you expected is necessary, and why not being able to go back isn't a failure. This is Break the Silence, Build the Future, Season 3. Now what? Thank you for joining me. Until next time, bye for now.